this video, I'm going to show you how you can take this ThinkPad Lenovo Yoga, the L390 version that's relatively new, take all the data that's on the small SSD that came with it, migrate it to a new SSD, and then install the new SSD along with another 8 gigs of RAM. Again, this is cheaper than ordering it from the factory, but it's a little more trouble. But I'm just going to try to share with you how you could do this if you wanted to. The SSD I ordered to replace the 128 gigabyte is this Intel 2 terabyte NVMe SSD. And I'll just show you the box here real quickly so you can kind of see what that looks like. We'll pretend we're doing an unboxing here. And when you open it up, it comes with a really unhelpful manual here. This manual is for both 2.5 inch and M.2 form factors, and it really doesn't tell you anything at all about how you would install or migrate a drive. So here it is in a little plastic shell. Now also, let me show you the other tools we're going to use in this little process in case you're interested in doing such a thing. Now, the other thing, I'm going to be adding an 8 gigabyte stick of RAM. And what came in the computer was a Hynix brand. Let me get this out of the little plastic bag here so you can see it. So this is supposed to be exactly the same thing that came with the computer. So the Hynix memory company, one of the major memory companies in the world, an 8 gigabyte PC4 2666 speed stick. And so there's one of these already in there. We're going to add this one. So let me just set this over to the side until we need it. Now, other things that we're going to be using here, little computer toolkits with a screwdriver. The main thing we need here is the screwdriver and spudgers. Now, a spudger is a prying tool. This is a little metal one here that came with this little screwdriver set. And here is a little plastic prying tool. You need something like this, preferably a wider one. So I'll be using the metal one here in order to pry the back case off. Now I also have a separate little spudger kit that I got off of eBay for like $7 or $8 that has a few different sizes here and shapes. And again, I generally prefer the wider one because it doesn't put too much stress on the plastic case, so it usually doesn't split it. But I'll issue some more warnings about that as we go along. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of the data and the operating system and everything onto this SSD. So the final two pieces of the puzzle we need are some way to write to this SSD when it's outside of the computer. Now, there are ways around this, but I want to just do this all in one shot. So I could move everything, make an image of the SSD that's in this computer to a portable hard drive or a large pen drive, and then install this and then copy everything back over. I usually think it's a little bit easier to just do it straight away. Copy everything directly from the SSD inside to the SSD that I will be installing. So in order to do that, we need another tool. And this is something I ordered off of Amazon for about 30 bucks or so. I'll try to provide a link to that. None of this video is sponsored by anybody, by the way, just to make sure that that's clear. So what I got is a USB-C to USB 3.0 or 3.1 perhaps, cable, and a little external enclosure that you can put an SSD in. Now when you order an external enclosure for one of these M.2 style drives, keep in mind that the M.2 is basically the shape of the SSD, but that there are at least 2 different ways, and perhaps more, ways that an M.2 can actually communicate with a computer. And since this is an NVMe drive and not a SATA, so a SATA is a slower, older specification that M.2 sometimes use, This is an NVMe, so when you order the little external case, make sure it is compatible with an NVMe drive. They're a little more expensive than the SATA ones, but make sure you keep that in mind when you're ordering. So let me open this up and see if we can pop this inside. And since it's temporary, I'm not going to be worried too much about how it looks or anything. I noticed that this little kit came with these little blue sticky strips, and I assume that these are thermal pads, that if you were going to install this in this case permanently, you would probably want to install these thermal pads. I don't know if it would be top, bottom, or both, but that will help because these NVMe drives can generate a lot of heat, and these thermal pads will help conduct that heat to the aluminum body of the enclosure and keep it from overheating. I'm not going to worry about the thermal pads since this is just going to be a temporary thing, and I'm probably just going to leave this aluminum case open while I do the copying. Anyway, so let me grab my screwdriver and also grab my glasses here so that I can take this thing apart. So looks like it's got 4 screws, but if I had to guess, we might not have to take off all the screws. One other little tip here. Speaking of which, the tip of my screwdriver just came off. Another little tip is when you're working with small screws, it's good to have a little magnetic pad like this or a little magnetic bowl. You can get them at auto shops, the little bowl type. These you can order for 50 cents or whatever, or just use a refrigerator magnet that's flat. That's basically what this is. Helps you keep track of your screws. The benefit of this kind is it's got a white surface that you can write on and you can erase. So if you have different kinds of screws, you can label where you took those screws out of the computer or whatever else it is you're working on. And since it's magnetic, the screws won't roll around quite as much as if it was not magnetic. Alright, let's see what happens if I just pop that part off. Alright, I am going to have to take off these 2 screws as well, so sorry if I'm out of frame sometimes. I don't normally do this style of video. So removing these 2 screws on the front end. And hopefully the whole thing will just come apart now into my hands. Alright, there we go. So I didn't need to take off the back 2 screws. Just taking off the front 2 screws would probably work. Alright, so let's go ahead and slide this thing in there. Now with M.2 drives, there are various lengths of M.2 drives, and you want to attach it with a screw, and this has a screw and a little nut that on this board you can move to different places depending on the length of the M.2 drive that you actually have. So that's pretty nice. Let me take that screw out. Drop it onto my little mat here. And I think that's probably the length of the one we have, so let's see here. Pop it out of its little plastic case. So just a tiny little thing here for 2 terabytes. And you see there's a little key here in the corner. And you want to look for the little notch in the slot where that will go. And just kind of gently slide it in there. All right. And most of the time, in my experience with SSDs, when you put them in there, they do kind of stand up a little bit like that when you first put them in. And then you just gently press it down and put that screw back in. So let's do that. So this is one piece of the puzzle, but then you also have to have some software that will make an image. So we're not copying files over. We have to make an image of everything, including the operating system and some hidden files. And so if you just try to drag and drop, that's not going to work. So we need some imaging software. Now, with most SSD manufacturers, they will include a little card in the box, and they'll tell you, hey, go to this link and you can download our data transfer software. And the Intel, again, this little booklet that came with it was not helpful at all. And I had actually decided I was probably just going to go ahead and use one of the free software programs out there. One of them being one called, let me show you here, Easeus. To do. They have a free version that will work for doing this kind of process. And even if you buy it, it's pretty cheap. And so this is a pretty good utility if the SSD that you buy just doesn't come with software or you just can't figure out how to use it, then this is a pretty decent tool that you can use. Now, Samsung comes with a good program. By doing some Googling, I was able to actually figure out that Intel does have some data migration software here. So I had to actually Google Intel SSD migration software, and those are the keywords that came up, that finally found it. So let's click on that page and let's download it and install it, and then we'll see if we can use this little external SSD reader. All right, let's click on that, and it looks like it's a zip file. All right, no problem. Let's accept the terms. And with most of these programs, you have to use the software that comes from the manufacturer of your SSD drive. They will have in the software to look to see if you have an SSD made by them attached to your computer, and if you don't, it won't work. I can't say if that's true for all of them, but for many of them it is. Okay, so this is going to take a little while to download. So I'll download this, unzip it, and install it, and then resume. Okay, installation complete. Let's close. So we have a little shortcut on our desktop now. Now, before I plug this little Intel SSD in through this little cable, let's try to run the software and see if it does check to see if we have an Intel product attached to the system, an Intel SSD. Yeah, so exactly what I was imagining here is this product edition requires at least one Intel drive installed on your system. So let's cancel and let's see if when we attach this, hopefully it will be able to pick this up. So this is a little USB-C cable, and that means we can put it in either way into this part. And then I'll plug this into the USB slot over here. Let's give it a second to digest and recognize that. All right, so it's not showing up in the devices here for drives, and even though we have this plugged in, when we click the Intel software, it is acting like it doesn't, we still don't have an Intel drive plugged in. And that's a problem with one of these little external gizmos, is it's not, the computer might not see the Intel SSD, it's going to see the device that that's connected to, and that device gets in the way. So we might have to go another route here and use that Easeus partition manager in any case. Let's check Device Manager to see what might be going on here. So Device Manager. So Device Manager shows us all the hardware that we have installed, and if we click on disk drives here, we see this is the Toshiba 128 gigabyte SSD that's in there, and this appears to be this little external NVMe reader. You know what? Let's just skip trying to use Intel's software here, and let's use the Easeus version. So we're going to use Easeus Toto Home, and they have a free version here. Let me try to use the free version. I actually have the home version that I've paid for, but to try to help everybody, so you have to enter in an email address, and they let you download the free version here. Let's try using that, so that if you're playing along, trying to do this at home, you'll be able to see the steps. But I bought the home version because I have used this program several times and it's good quality, and I like to support people who make good programs, especially if they do have a free version that lets you do a lot of the things you need to do. Let's see if we can actually do this with the free version. I've done this before, but it's been a while. Alright, it's done installing. Let's hit finish and launch. Alright, so now that we have Easeus Toto installed, click up here so we can see the labels for the different options. And what I want to do here is a system clone. And the system clone, it says the source is Microsoft Windows 10. So it's going to take the system that I already have here with all my files and everything else. And then it says, where do you want to send it? And here is our 1.86 terabyte. Now, of course, when you buy an SSD or a hard drive, it's going to say when they sell it that it's larger than it is. And that's just a different way of measuring what a megabyte or a gigabyte or a terabyte is using a binary system or using a base 10 system. In any case, they're not cheating you. So let's click here. This is where we want to send our system, and let's click proceed. And without reading the manual, I'm guessing this is going to work, but we're not losing anything if it doesn't, because all we're doing is we're taking, theoretically, everything that's on this computer and cloning it over here, and then we'll remove the 128 gigabyte, we'll put in the 2 terabyte, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, okay, we'll try again. So this is going to take a while. It's going to be copying. It doesn't have to copy a whole 128 gigabytes, but it's probably going to have to copy about 60 gigabytes worth of stuff that I have on here. So I'm going to pause the video while it does that, and it should probably take between 3 or 4 and 10 minutes, but I'll report back when we're done. All right, that took about 15 minutes or so here. So now we're going to click finish. And hopefully everything, I'm not going to rate your program right now, we'll see if it actually works when we put this SSD in there. So let's have a look at the SSD now and see if it's registering on the laptop. So yeah, it does. We have our original SSD here. Now it looks like it cloned it to another drive that it's calling Windows B. And sometimes programs, when they clone, they will set the 2 partitions the same size. It's just somehow easier. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the SSD, the 2 terabyte one, take it out of this little portable gizmo, and we're going to open up the laptop. We're going to install our memory. We're going to install this SSD, and we're going to hope that it works. And then what we'll want to do, our final step, is resize this SSD so we can take advantage of the whole 2 terabytes. So I'm going to shut this laptop down, and let's have a look at what's going on. So from here on in, the camera work, it probably won't be great again because I don't do this very often. So I've completely shut down the computer, and we're going to want to unplug everything from the laptop before we remove the back. Now I'm going to go ahead and take off this 2 terabyte SSD, remove it from this little portable thing here. Alright, I'll temporarily put the screw there, and I'm going to go ahead and screw this screw back into the portable gizmo so that we don't lose that. Because until I figure out something better to do with the SSD that's in there, I might use it as a portable drive. Who knows? Be pretty small, but it should be pretty fast. So as I said, make sure you take everything out of all of the little slots here. We need to take out the little pin as well. I learned the hard way. This computer has a little micro SD slot. Make sure you take that micro SD card out of there before you try to remove the back panel, or you will break your micro SD card. Let me show you what happens if you don't take your micro SD card out before you do this. You end up with a broken micro SD card. That micro SD card slot, it still works, but it's a little janky right now. All right, so we're going to flip this over. And one of the things I really like about this laptop is when you unscrew these 9 screws on the back, they're captive, meaning they don't fall out. And that's one of the things that will ruin many a good laptop is the screws get loose over time and they fall out, and that starts twisting the laptop in places it shouldn't be twisting, and then the case will crack. And so just spending that extra few cents to put a little locking washer on the other side so that those screws won't fall out. I wish all laptop manufacturers would always do that. All right, so these, again, on this laptop, it's very easy. None of the screws are hidden under any rubber feet or anything. Pretty easy to just see these 9 screws and loosen them up. And when they're captive, one thing you do want to make sure that you really do unthread all the screws all the way, because otherwise when you start trying to pry this back off, you might damage something. Okay, now here's where Spudger comes in. And again, I like to use this flat metal Spudger here. What you want to do is just find one of these little corners here and gently wedge, maybe the pointy bit in there. And then try to get the entire flat surface in there and start twisting gently until you hear a little snap. And so when you hear a little snap, you'll see there's a little gap that emerges here. And once you get one little area snapped, just very patiently move the Spudger a little and twist. Move a little, twist. And sometimes you don't even have to twist, and then you'll see that little gap emerge along this edge as we go. I'm going to switch to this end that gives me a little more surface area. There we go. You hear a little click as each of these little plastic fingers pop out. And it does take a little bit of effort, but you really want to balance between too little effort and too much, because too much could cause a crack, and that's not good. So here we're near one of those screws, and I'm feeling more resistance than I think I should. And yeah, if you don't like watching this and you're bored, then you can fast forward the video. But a lot of people have never done this before, and I want to make sure that people see, kind of how much force you need to put on this and how you can struggle at times with getting, there we go, that one popped. And sometimes you will feel like you're putting too much force. Now, if you're on a solid plastic lip like this, there's not a lot of danger that you're going to mess something up. Although it is possible that these little plastic teeth that grab on the inside here, that you might crack some of those off. So you don't want to do that. All right. Now, another thing, so this one is nicely popped clean on the sides. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And let me just say that when you're trying to pry, be especially careful around areas where there's a USB port or an HDMI port, because the plastic right here is so thin, it's extremely easy to just crack and break that off. But it looks like we've got enough clearance here. Okay, that just came off. Very good. All right. So now we're looking at the insides, looking at the guts of the laptop here. And so here's the one RAM chip that came in there. So that's an 8 gig. And here's one that is exactly the same, from the same manufacturer, same speed and everything. Let me just double check that. So to remove these, there are two little spring clamps, one on each end here, and it pops up. And if we flip it over, you can see the manufacturer for each of these and the speed and all of that good information. And so let me just verify that these are the same. Yeah, PC4 2666, made by SK Hynix in Korea. Flip them over so that that label side is down. And again, we align the little slot here. Push it in really well and wiggle it, and then just push it down and those little clamps will snap on. And same thing here. Put it in the slot, wiggle it to where it really gets all the way in there, and then push down and it snaps in. Now we have 16 gigs of RAM. Now let's take out the old SSD and in with the new. And there's this little tiny silver screw here. Once we take this out, I'll show you this SSD that was in here real quick. So as I think I tried to mention earlier, there are different lengths. Yeah, we saw that with this this little case, that there are external case. There are different lengths that SSDs come in. And this is one of the shorter ones that I've seen right here. And this one is made by Hitachi, 128 gigabytes. And this little metal spacer here is just so that it will fit in the full-sized slot right here. So we're not going to need that spacer anymore for this laptop. Let's just take our 2 terabyte SSD and make sure we have it. Again, there's a little plastic separator here in this slot where it goes. You want to make sure you have it turned around the right way to where that little gap will go in there. And again, just like the RAM, kind of wiggle it in there. And this one lays flat when you put it in there. It's not poking up like the other one it did in the other case there. Let me take this little tiny screw and we try not to drop it on the floor and lose it. Alright, the screwdriver does have a little bit of magnetic capacity on it. So turn it backwards a couple of revolutions to get it started, and then thread it in there. Now ideally, that's it, right? This is the easy part. The hard part is actually, getting a program that will get the data off the old computer and off the old SSD and onto the new SSD. Now everything should be fine. Now I'm going to just put this bottom cover on here, just lay it on there. I'm not going to snap it in yet, and I'm not going to screw it in yet. And I just want to see what happens when I turn the laptop on. If it will turn on. Oh, it won't actually turn on without that on. Wait a minute. I bet I can do this. Where is... Okay. Right here's the power button. So let's just hit that. And let's see if it turns on. And then we'll quickly turn this thing off after we see that it is booting and that our SSD migration worked fine. All right, there's our Lenovo logo. It looks like it's booting Windows. Let's cross our fingers. And there we go. We've booted into Windows. It's ready for my fingerprint. So now I'm going to shut this down, and so hit the little power button on the touch screen here and shut down so that we can put the back plate back on, and we'll be good to go. And the last thing I'll show you real quickly, if you're not sick of this video yet, is I'll show you how we can use some tools in Windows to expand the size of the SSD to the full 2 terabytes. All right, we're shut down. So let me show you how to put this back on. And again, you just make sure it's the right way around with the little holes for the hinge here. And then you want to press around the outside to snap it. And usually I start from the back. And you should hear little clicks as you go. Or big clicks. And you want to visually look around the edge to make sure that there's no gap left anywhere that doesn't look like it should be there. Okay, well, there is a little gap there, but I bet that'll close once we screw the screws in. And it's looking good. All right, so I'm just going to screw these 9 screws back in here. We'll boot up the computer and I'll show you how we can expand our partition so we can use that full 2 terabytes. I'll be back in a minute. All right, so we've got our laptop booted up, and I'm going to take this 128 gigabyte SSD here and put it in this little carrier, little USB-C carrier here. Whoops, better take that screw out first. And now I'm going to have just about the world's fastest external drive, right? So the easiest way I know to get to this option where you can resize your partition is right-click on my computer, or this PC as this one is called, and then go to Manage. Or you can, type the Windows key and you could search for Computer Management, and then this window will come up. And here we have a disk management interface. And so when we click on disk management, we can see that new SSD that we put in here. 118 gigabytes is our Windows partition, and then we have this 1,800 gigabytes over here that's unallocated. So what we want to do is expand this partition to where it takes up the whole thing, unless you wanted to have 2 partitions for some reason. I used to like that. Now, most of the time I just go with 1 partition. It is easier to back up things if you set 1 partition to be a little smaller, and then maybe you use the other partition just for things like music and movies and things that you don't really need to back up. So actually, I'll probably do that. Let me expand this to 1 terabyte, and then I'll leave approximately the other terabyte just for more cold storage that I don't want to back up because it slows your backup process. So we can right click here on C up here, right click and extend volume, and click next. It says here's the maximum available space we can have. Set the amount of space that you want in megabytes. So let me change this to just 10000. Oh, need one more 0 there, right? So then our total size for this is going to be about 1.1 terabytes, and then that'll leave about 0.8 terabytes or so for storing other things. All right, next. To close this wizard, click Finish, and there we go. And so now if we click on this PC and we look at our drive, we see that our drive is now about 1.06, about 1.1 terabytes. And that's good. And then we can create another drive in the rest of the partition here. And maybe we can use that, initially for our backups. And then we can transfer those backups to a portable hard drive or something later. So we can right click here and say New Simple Volume. And we'll just use the maximum amount of space that we can. Assign the drive letter D. Sounds fine. And we'll do a quick format to NTFS. Yeah, all the defaults here seem like they're fine. And it tells us that it's formatting it, and it really shouldn't take more than a few seconds for that to happen. Okay, yeah, and it's already done. And so now when we look at our computer, we have our main partition with our operating system, programs, and over here we'll use for storing pictures, video files temporarily and things before we can do a more permanent backup. All right, well, that ends this video, and it was longer than I'd planned, and I apologize for that, but I'll try to edit this down to where it's a little cleaner but still leave enough information for you to where you can do this, or at least consider whether you want to try to do this yourself if you want to do it on your own. So this is Mark Berkey with Berkey Academy, and I'm signing out, and I want you to have a great day. And when it comes to working on upgrading your computers, be careful, do your research, watch other people try it, but then have a little confidence in yourself, but know your limitations at the same time. I hope you have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye now.